Good morning. Hope everybody is doing well. Um, so today what we're going to be looking at is the two sample t-tests for means. So we have this test and then what's called a matched pairs t-test that we're going to look at on Wednesday. And then we are finished up with hypothesis testing, which was our last unit for the means. That was the last thing that we had to go over that would be tested. So what we're looking at is we're going to talk about this today, matched pairs on Wednesday. Monday, I would like to look at, okay, if I give you different hypothesis tests, can you pick out which one? And then we're looking at next Wednesday for a test over hypothesis testing, and we will continue to start reviewing. We're going to go back to the very beginning, and there's some different people that are putting out videos and things like that. So I'm evaluating which ones I think are the best for us to look at and to review. And like I said before on our Google Meet, I'm gathering up our notes and everything so that we can start reviewing and be ready for our AP exam. That is May 22nd. So make sure your parents know and everybody knows that is a big date because we're all going to pass our AP exam that day. All right, so go through our notes here. First thing is your hypotheses, so the same exact order. Alright, so this is similar to when we did the two proportion z-test when we write our hypotheses. So there's two different ways to write it. I'm going to show you how I write it. They use them interchangeably on the AP exam, two different ways to do it. So with the null, you're saying that mean 1 is equal to mean 2. Remember, that's the mu. It looks like an M, it looks like a U. Now, here's the thing. Some of us didn't do when we did two proportion. You must give context. So you've got to say mu1 equals this, mu2 equals this. Or if it's like something you can abbreviate, men and women, or this happened in 2000, this happened in 2002, and put dates there instead of 1 and 2. But somehow you must give context to that. And I know when I went back and looked at some of the stuff you did on two proportion, that was a comment that I made for a couple of you. All right, then we have our alternative. And so we may say either, like what we're looking at is that the mean of 1, which is mu1, would be less than that of 2, or it's greater than, or it's just not equal to. Now, another way you can write these, I write them this way because I think it's easier and I think it's easier to understand. But I do want you to be able to recognize, and I showed you this with the two proportion, is that the null would say mu1 minus mu2 equals 0. That means they're equal. There's no difference. And then the alternative would be that mu1 minus mu2 is less than 0. That means mu1 is bigger than mu2. Or it's greater than 0. This would mean that it's less than this one. This one means that it's greater than this one. Or you could just say that the difference does not equal 0. This is the way you'll see me write them on the examples. All right, then our conditions. We have randomization. Now, looking at your work from last week, if it tells you that something is random, you need to say that. When it doesn't tell you is when you say, I assume it's representative of the population. But if it tells you it's randomization, this randomly selected, you need to say it's randomly selected. 10%, we all know what that means. You need to do this for both samples. You can do it all in one sentence. And nearly normal. Now, something I wrote on your work from last week. And please go back and look at those comments that I make on there. Is if it doesn't give you actual data, it's either going to tell you that it follows that normal pattern or you assume that the distribution's unimodal and fairly symmetric. If it gives you the specific data, you must make the histogram or stem and leaf plot. If you are typing these answers and intend to type for the AP exam, I don't know, you'll have one or two choices. You won't be able to do a mix like some of y'all are doing for me. It'll either be all typed or all written, and you'll submit that, and it'll be your choice. But if you're typing this, it's hard to type out and put that histogram, and I don't know what the software is going to be like for the test. So you may want to type out a stem and leaf plot, because that would be easy, like a little table that you could make with a stem and leaf plot. So like this, 1, 2, 3, and then put your numbers over there. And I think you could, type that out easier than trying to figure out how to make a histogram, especially on that day when we're going so fast on the test. But if they give you actual data, you must make a distribution and then say it's unimodal and fairly symmetric. So those of you who left that out, I made that comment to you on your work last week. All right, so then after you've checked, and then this is the one that some of us keep forgetting, including myself just now, independent groups. So don't forget to add that in. I don't think that'll make or break you if you were to forget it, but try to remember to put that in there. All right, then we have our statement. So for this one, it would be because the conditions are met, I will perform a 2-sample t-test using the student's t-model. Then we get our statistics, our actual numbers here. And so you get your t-score. All right, so what this means, mean 1 minus mean 2. All right, then is over the square root of the standard deviation from group 1 squared over n1 plus the standard deviation from group 2 squared over n from group 2. And degrees of freedom. This one is not n minus 1. It's that big long formula that I showed you in the book that you're just let the calculator give you. Now, degrees of freedom for one sample t-test has to be there. It's just n minus 1. If you really want to know more about degrees of freedom, they're a little bit difficult to understand, but they just have to be there. I can send you a video from YouTube that explains that a little better. All right, now to get your p-value and what your t-score is, so you don't have to actually work any of this out. So to get all that, you're going to go to Stat, Tests, and I've forgotten 4. And then you either have the statistics you'll put in or the data. So you'll put your data in for mean 1 in L1, your data for mean 2 in L2, and then it can do that for you. So let's take a look at that. Let me pull up a calculator. All right, so Stat Test 4. Okay, so if you're given the data for the two groups, you'll put those in at L1 and L2. You'll pick these. Again, pooled, we're not going to do pooled. Okay? We're going to do it like this. Unless you want to do it pooled as you watched on the Khan Academy, that's up to you, but I'm not going to go into that. Then you'll pick not equal to, less than, or greater than, and then calculate. Or if you're given the statistics, what the mean and standard deviation for each group is, then you'll go here and you'll type those in there. And then it gives you all of that. So I'm going to put in some just made up stuff. I just made all that up, and then I'm going to put it in here. And so there would be my t-score, my p-value. Now, pay attention to this when you get a p-value like this. That's 1.238 times 10 to the negative 5. So that's like 0.00001, The degrees of freedom, it gives it to you. I will just write it in there. And then if I didn't have like my data and it was doing it for me, it would tell me the mean and standard deviation, but I'm going to put those in there. That's how you'll get your t-score and your p-value on that. All right, and then lastly, your conclusion, same thing. We're doing much better with the conclusions now. So using an alpha level of 0.05, I reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis. There is or isn't evidence for whatever the question says. All right, so I'm going to post a couple of examples and have you try a couple of these today. So please message me any questions that you have about anything, and can't wait to see you all again. Bye.